It sounds like a declaration of civil war. The president of Ecuador says a battle is taking place inside his country. Just this week, violence has claimed at least 10 lives. Kidnappers are targeting police, people told to stay indoors at night, or they could be caught in the crossfire between soldiers and drug cartel militants. Last night, the clash was broadcast on live television, terror in real time, when gunmen stormed a television station. They were wearing masks. They said they had a message, and they had explosives to make their point. I'm Brent Goff in Berlin. This is The Day.
The country is living through a real nightmare, something unthinkable, unimaginable just a short time ago.
All of a sudden, I saw one of my colleagues with a terrified look on his face. And he said, "They're coming to kill us. They've already got inside the TV station."
They shot one of our cameramen in the leg, broke the arm of another one. They fired bullets. They used their weapons inside.
Mr. President, you have to put a firm hand on this, because if he takes a step back, it'll be worse.
Organised crime has declared war on the state, and the state must prevail. The state must win.
Also coming up, it's been almost a week since that Alaskan Airlines flight that saw a piece of the plane ripped out in mid-flight. Airlines have now grounded many of their Boeing 737s, so are you still ready to fly?
I mean, there's something you don't see every day, that door flying open in an Alaskan Airlines flight. I mean, I feel fine. I mean, I feel pretty comfortable flying.
To our viewers watching on PBS in the United States and to all of you around the world, welcome. We begin the day with the question that they are asking in Ecuador tonight. Who is in charge? Who is in control? 24 hours ago, the entire nation watched as gunmen stormed a live TV broadcast. They were armed with explosives and they demanded to be heard. Their message, according to Ecuador's president, was one of terror and one too many. Tonight, across Ecuador, soldiers are patrolling the streets. A nighttime curfew is in effect, and it remains to be seen if this crackdown will have a lasting impact. For years, violence has gone from bad to worse in Ecuador. Drug cartels waging war against each other in prisons and on the streets to control the routes used to traffic cocaine, made in South America, consumed in the U.S. and here in Europe.
Police engaged with a group of gunmen during a raid in southern Ecuador. The army says it's stepping up its offensive against the powerful drug gangs who are behind the violence across the country. The shootout took place in the city of Huaquillas, near the border with Peru, which says it's stepping up its patrols along the frontier to stop the violence spilling into its territory. Throughout Ecuador, security units have been out in force, trying to reassure citizens of their safety. Authorities say they're doing what they can, but they can't be everywhere at once. This footage shows armed gang members setting fire to cars in the country's north in broad daylight. And the gang's terror tactics appear to be working. People on the streets say they're scared.
Sadness and fear is something we all have right now, but we don't know what to do, because in reality, we can't do anything.
People are afraid. They don't want to go out anymore. Businesses are closing. So as a citizen, I'm very scared of what's happening right now in Ecuador.
The security situation hit the national and international headlines on Tuesday, when heavily armed narcos stormed a TV station in Ecuador's largest city, Guayaquil, during a live news broadcast. The masked gunmen said they were there to warn Ecuadorians not to mess with the mafia. The attack was swift and violent.
They shot one of our cameramen in the leg, broke the arm of another one. They fired bullets. They used their weapons inside.
About 30 minutes after the gunmen appeared, police could be seen entering the TV station. The gangsters were captured, but the attack left Ecuadorians horrified. Ecuador has struggled for years with violence tied to drug trafficking, including homicides and kidnapping. But now the president says Ecuador is at war with the gangs, and he's announced a state of emergency for at least 60 days. During this time, officials can suspend people's rights and mobilize the army, including in prisons.
Well, for more now, I'm joined by journalist Adriana Aragui. She joins us from the Ecuadorian capital, Quito. Adriana, it's good to see you. We spoke 24 hours ago when this crisis was really erupting. Tell me, what's the difference in the security situation in Ecuador tonight compared to last night?
Hello. Well, today everything is a little bit calmer, even though we have had a couple of violent acts throughout the country. We had one explosion here in Quito, but it was actually very minor compared to what we watched yesterday.
Yeah. The president has declared a state of internal armed conflict. That sounds something maybe close to a civil war, maybe or maybe not. What does that mean to you?
We haven't had that kind of measures before. The recent governments haven't been able to take that decision. But this means that the 22 gangs that the government listed last night are considered now terrorist groups. And this means that they are military objectives right now. So the military forces that are on the streets are on the lookout for these people.
And Adriana, what's their ultimate goal here then? If they don't want to run the country, is it just about controlling the pathways, the routes that are used to traffic drugs? Is that what this is all about?
That's what the government says, and we believe so because since the drug trafficking world is changing and the market is shifting, many of the operations from these drug cartels have been running here from Ecuador. And the drugs have been going from here to Europe and to the United States. So we think that, yes, they want to keep the business running from here as they have been doing for the past 3 years.
How do you explain what has happened in Ecuador? You know, Ecuador used to be considered in the United States a paradise for people to retire to. They don't retire to Ecuador anymore. How did the drug gangs, how did they gain so much power so quickly?
Well, we believe everything started like after we changed governments, after Rafael Correa, and everything in the state started to change. The authorities started to change. And with those political changes in the administration, the drug cartels, they started to gain power inside the public system, inside the police, the justice system, the military forces. So that's why right now we are like seeing what has been happening for these past 5 years. Especially the last 3 years, it has been really difficult for the governments to try to maintain control of the country and to have a really good justice system, because we don't have that.
But Andrea, let me ask you, before we run out of time, do you think this president and this government, do they have the answer, the strategy to regain control and control that lasts?
We don't know that so far because the government has been really secretive about their security plans, and they keep that argument out to the public. But President Daniel Noboa, he is actually doing things a little bit different from what we were used to. And we are just hoping to see if these measures take effect and change what we have been seeing for the last 3 years.
All right, journalist Adriana Aragui with the latest on volatile events happening in Ecuador. Adriana, we appreciate your reporting. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
it makes me feel better knowing that they don't have those aircrafts in the air, obviously. I'd seen that on the news the other day. I thought it was extremely, frightening.
I actually feel a little safer because of the fact that they're doing all this checking and making sure. I actually feel very good. But yes, I did remind him to make sure you always keep your seatbelt on no matter what.
I trust in the system, and the system works, so I've never been distrustful. So.
All right, those were some U.S. air travelers there, asked how they felt about flying in the wake of last week's mid-air door blowout on board a Boeing 737 MAX airplane. Alaska Airlines, which operates many flights using that Boeing model, grounded about 100 planes today as safety checks continue. Other carriers, which also use Boeing MAX planes, have reported finding loose bolts during inspections. Boeing's chairman is vowing complete transparency in the investigation process. In the meantime, the White House is reassuring the public that air travel remains safe.
The FAA's priority is always keeping Americans safe. That is most important. I think the American people should feel safe flying.
All right, that's what the White House says. For more analysis, I'm joined now by Stephen Wright. He's a professor of aircraft systems at the University of Tampere in Finland. It's good to have you on the program, Stephen. So would you agree, should the public feel safe about getting inside an airplane and taking off these days?
Good evening. I think that the public should feel safe. Statistically, flying on an aircraft is incredibly safe. The aircraft are made to very high standards. More importantly, they're maintained to even higher standards. It's a highly regulated, safe industry.
It's a highly regulated industry. What about getting an airplane from the blueprint, the drawing board to the market, the certification process? You say that there maybe needs to be questions raised about how that takes place, if it's too fast, if the quality checks are adequate. Talk to me about that.
Well, the way that I see this particular problem happening is, you've got this huge company, Boeing, and they're overseen by an American regulator, the FAA. And this isn't the first problem that Boeing's had with this particular style of aircraft. The MAX series was, very, very problematic. Mm-hmm. They had two very, very significant fatal accidents because Boeing decided to put on new technologies that they didn't explain, and it did things that the pilots weren't aware about, and it wasn't their best corporate decision ever. And all of this was overseen by the regulator. The regulator in the States mm-hmm. effectively gave Boeing carte blanche to make decisions. Now, one would have expected Boeing to have taken on board lessons learned, I think is the magic word that everybody likes to use. But it seems that maybe this hasn't happened mm-hmm. because now you have an aircraft that's coming new out of a factory, and it's got quite significant latent problems with it that are hidden, that the manufacturer doesn't understand and that should be picked up. And things are happening, yeah.
So this may not be, this isn't a question of proper maintenance, you're saying. This could actually be a question of design and engineering.
No, not necessarily the design. The design, I don't believe, is the key issue here, because the doors, the panels that have come off haven't come off because cracks have emerged on metallic structures. As far as I'm aware, they are attributed to missing or incorrectly installed fasteners.
Okay.
And that's quite different. So the problem here is that the assembly process, bluntly, what's happened in the factories that Boeing has conducted by Boeing employees has then been stamped.
Shoddy workmanship, right? Craftsmanship.
It's stamped and certified. Well, worse than that, it's stamped and certified as being completed to the manufacturer's standard. And clearly, this hasn't happened. We've only found out about it because one of the doors fallen off.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a young child sitting in the airplane. Thank goodness he had a seatbelt on, but it pulled his shirt off. That's how strong the pressure was. Where do we go from here? It sounds like you're saying that the regulatory agency of the United States is basically too cozy with the airline industry. So this independent oversight in America is not working as it should. So how do you fix that?
Honestly, I don't know how you're going to fix this, because one would have thought after the previous MAX events with the MCAS, the flight control system, you would have thought the regulator should have picked up on it, and they didn't. And then we had the fatal crashes. And we've moved forward now. This is a couple of years ago, and yet the regulator hasn't. They haven't picked up on it. And this problem is now moving forward. So we found out about this particular problem with the doors. What other problems haven't they detected?
Yeah.
It's a big problem for both the manufacturer and also for the regulator.
Yep. And it's a good reason, if you do have to fly, to always keep your seatbelt fastened. I guess that's really the only thing we can do. Aviation expert and Professor Stephen Wright. Stephen, we appreciate your time and your analysis. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pope Francis has touched off a debate on the issue of surrogate motherhood. In his annual address to Vatican diplomats, the Roman Catholic leader listed surrogacy as among the evils afflicting modern society, and he called for a worldwide ban. Here's how Pope Francis justified his appeal.
The life of the unborn child in the mother's womb cannot be suppressed or turned into an object of trafficking. Therefore, the practice of what's known as surrogate motherhood is deplorable. It represents a grave violation of the dignity of the woman and the child based on the exploitation of the situation involving the mother's material needs. A child is always a gift and never the basis of a commercial contract. Consequently, I hope the international community will make an effort to prohibit the practice universally.
All right, for more, I'm joined now by Sarah Jones. She's the chief executive of Surrogacy UK. That's a British group that supports families on both ends of the surrogacy process. And she's a 5-time, and let me get this right, altruistic surrogate herself. Sarah, welcome to the show. It's good to have you with us. I just wanted to get the definitions right here. When you say you are an altruistic surrogate, does that mean you have carried a child for a couple and you've received no payment for it? Is that what that means?
Yes, that's correct. So I've acted as a surrogate 5 times for people that have turned into friends, lifelong friends for me. And I did it non-commercially for no payment whatsoever.
So you did it just because you want to help couples have children who can't have children themselves biologically, just out of the goodness of your heart?
Yeah, I thought, why not help change somebody's life? I adore my children and I love being a mum, and knowing that I could change somebody's life and create parents and grandparents was just something I knew I could do, and has brought me such a lot of joy that I obviously did it 5 times.
Yeah, I mean, hey, and you must have good genes if you can do it 5 times, because you look great. I wonder what goes through your mind when you hear the Pope say that surrogacy is immoral and despicable?
I think there's a lot of confusion about the types of surrogacy. I'm personally opposed to commercial surrogacy. So there are some points that I would agree with him on. I don't think any woman's body should be commodified or children should be for sale. However, altruistic surrogacy does exist, and it exists successfully. And the UK is a really good example of that. We don't allow commercial surrogacy in the UK, and it has to be altruistic, and it works really, really well. And we have about 500 babies born a year in the UK through altruistic surrogacy. So it is successful and it works. and the children are loved and cherished and also have a lifelong relationship with their surrogate. So they just get additional family in the form of their surrogate.
So do you have a relationship then with the five families, or the 5 children that you've been a surrogate mother for? Do you have relationships with them after the birth?
Absolutely, yes. The eldest surrogate baby that I've given birth to is now 21, and the youngest is 3. And I have open and transparent relationships with them all. They know who I am. They know that I carried them, and they know that we have a lovely connection. And they're very proud of that.
So do they have a name for you? Do they call you, Auntie Sarah, or is there a little
just
title?
Sarah?
Just Sarah? Okay.
Just Sarah. Yeah, just Sarah.
Wow. Well, I mean, for some couples, surrogacy is one of few options available to have children as part of their family ideal. Talk to me then about the people who turn to your organization.
So it's a mix of people, really. It's women, heterosexual couples that have experienced infertility, that have experienced loss, stillbirths, etc., that have tried IVF numerous times. It's women that have had cancer and have had their wombs removed, and it's also same-sex couples who now are able to access surrogacy to build their families as well. So it's a wide range of people that can access surrogacy in the UK.
It's fascinating. I know that surrogate motherhood is regulated, as you were saying, differently around the world. It's allowed in some U.S. states. It's banned in Italy, in Spain. What do you do? I mean, I would assume that since you're pushing the altruistic model, that there would just be more demand for this model. Is that the case? I mean, is business booming for you?
We have we're very, very busy. So we are one of 3 large organisations in the UK, and we have around 600 surrogate applications every year. So 600 women come forward wanting to be surrogates. And as I say, we're just one of 3 large surrogacy organisations in the UK. Mm-hmm. So there are a large number of women volunteering to be surrogates. There will always be more intended parents that need surrogacy because infertility is on the rise. But yeah, no, it is getting bigger year on year for definite.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, infertility is on the rise, and as a journalist, we've reported on so many events: the civil war in Syria, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Ukraine. There are millions of orphans now on this planet who would like to have parents. What do you say to critics who argue would-be parents are renting a womb, usually from a poorer woman, not always as in your case, but usually in other countries, going to extremes emotionally and financially just to pass on their DNA? What message does this send to an orphan child about his or her value as a person on this planet?
Well, all children have value. Every individual has value. And adoption should be considered by everybody before they make the choice whether to have their own genetic children. Whether you are infertile or same-sex couple, or whether you have no issues conceiving, everybody should consider whether adoption is right for them and make that choice on an individual basis.
Would you carry a child, Sarah? Would you carry a child for a couple that said, no, we would never consider adoption?
I think that I would do. But all of the intended parents that I've helped have considered adoption for definite. The first couple that I worked with, they wanted to adopt, but because they were of Greek heritage, they were told in the UK they weren't allowed to adopt a child outside of their own heritage.
I see.
So there are so many barriers to adoption, and they've been amazing parents.
Yeah.
And they would have been amazing adoptive parents.
Yeah.
So they didn't. So surrogacy was actually their second choice after adoption.
Yeah, we've got two adoptive daughters in my family. So yeah, I'm a big supporter of adoption as well. But good on you, Sarah Jones, for what you're doing, helping a lot of families realize the dream of a family. Chief Executive of Surrogacy UK. Sarah, we appreciate your time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
And finally, as temperatures plummet in many parts of Europe, people are lacing up their skates. They're taking to the ice, especially here in Bergen, Norway. A lake there has been transformed into a giant skating rink. The water freezes every year, but usually it's not thick enough to do this. But that's what people are doing. We will leave you with these images. We will see you right here tomorrow.
Heart beats fast.